Joining us now to discuss is BitBull Capital CEO Joe DiPasquale. Hello there, Joe. Thanks for joining us. So, upon hearing this news, who do you think will actually buy these Bitcoin bonds?
Thanks for having me on, Christine. It's an interesting question because, there has been a lot of disagreement from Bitcoin loyalists and maximalists who believe that over 100%, annual rate versus the US Treasury bond, about a 0.1% annual rate. So really, it's again that question of the Bitcoin maximalists. And to answer your question, I do see more and more large institutional investors, even trying a bit of Bitcoin as opposed to, let's say, gold. So I think it's anyone from a high net worth individual who believes in Bitcoin to even larger players, in corporate treasuries included.
I was thinking this is huge news for El Salvador, for the Bitcoin community, yet I'm seeing that the price of Bitcoin is actually in retreat. Why do you think that is?
It is in retreat, but we've done a lot of analysis internally at BitBull Capital about the reasons for that. And again, after all-time highs, you do see this retreat. There is Bitcoin's now trading at about 56K. There's a ton of support at 55, 54K. And so it's not something that concerns me. It's something that I see as, when a month like October goes up 40% for Bitcoin, yes, there's going to be some retracement in November. It's not a surprise. And I'm actually very heartened by Biden's nomination of Jerome Powell. And I think that'll be good for crypto and Bitcoin.
What was your reaction when you first heard about this Bitcoin city? And it's a huge experiment.
It is a huge experiment, but it's the first country really doing this experiment. Many people say, okay, Bitcoin, the end point is paying your taxes at the end of the day. And can you do that in Bitcoin? And with El Salvador, as you mentioned, they might have a VAT tax, but other than that, no taxes. And importantly, no CO2 emissions, they also say, given how they're doing the mining. So for me, it's incredibly exciting. They're working in conjunction with Bitfinex and others to improve Bitcoin to be able to launch this bond. So it'll be very interesting, and I think it's important. And I hope to see other nations, small nations, initially follow.
Mm-hmm. Well, I did notice Bitfinex is processing the payments, and what are the chances that their sister company Tether could end up buying the Bitcoin bonds and use them as their reserves?
Yes. Well, so Tether, I think, is under a lot of scrutiny, as we know. And so right now, they're very focused on ensuring that everyone knows that there's $1 per Tether out there. I do think we've seen interplay with Bitfinex before and Tether. And so, but the sense I get is that they want to do everything by the book. There was a lot of talk about how it's audited. And so I don't think there will be, I think they'll avoid that. To answer your question, I think they'll avoid that in this case. Given previous.
But in general, in this, amid this news in El Salvador, do you think that we'll eventually see this as a catalyst for a price rise? And I would put forth one idea is that, as part of this Bitcoin bond product, they are going to lock in $500 million worth of Bitcoin away. So already that $500 million is off the market.
That's right. So let's just take this back to, what Bitcoin is. It is a finite asset, right? So that there's going to be another purchase of $500 million of Bitcoin. And we also know that it's a hedge against, how the inflationary practices of many nations, including the US, where in the US, we're not even talking about actually any sort of tightening. We're just tapering the easing. So there's continued money printing and buying of mortgage-backed securities and more. And so it's very interesting, I think, to base an actual region on a city on Bitcoin and on the finite promises of it, and to launch new products on it like this bond. So it's very good news for Bitcoin, and all of the doom and gloom about, El Salvador, and it makes them, maybe they have bad financial policy. People were saying the same of Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy a year ago when he bought Bitcoin. They were saying, oh, wow, that corporate treasury is clearly misrun. And you know what? He multiple times the market cap of MicroStrategy, but making such an intelligent move that most people thought wasn't.
Indeed. And a company is one thing, though. A country, a whole other sack of potatoes. So we'll see what happens. Yes. Just a final question. End of year outlook, any price target for Bitcoin?
So BitBull Capital remains its 75K price target for Bitcoin. Last time we talked, Christine, and actually it was around the market high. It was the day after the all-time high of Bitcoin. And I mentioned to you that at BitBull, we have a little bit more sober look on the price of Bitcoin. And the good news about that is that we're often right. And so we believe that the price target will be about 75K at the end of the year.